right now on 5 on Your Side at 10.
Hazmat Highway.
It just goes up into the air. And that's what makes it dangerous.
A deadly truck crash releases ammonia, forcing people to evacuate. What will happen from here?
Today's highs around 90 degrees in most locations, even higher. But we'll hold on to that going into October. But how long it lasts and when we'll see a welcome change to fall.
Shutdown, showdown. Tensions persist as lawmakers come together to prevent the government from closing.
If somebody wants to remove because I want to be the adult in the room, go ahead and try.
The last-ditch effort to keep services up and running and the potential consequences behind the compromise. But first, we begin tonight with breaking news at the U.S. Capitol. Just hours ago, Congress passing a short-term resolution keeping the government running for another 45 days. Good evening. I'm Brent Solomon. The Senate passed a measure with less than 3 hours before the government was set to shut down. The vote put House Speaker McCarthy in a tough spot tonight. By partnering with the Democrats on this, he caused tension with some in his own party. Ryan Noble reports.
Against all odds, Congress found a way to avoid a government shutdown.
The bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
At the 11th hour, Speaker Kevin McCarthy calling an audible and defying his conservative rebels by putting a 45-day spending bill on the floor.
It is very clear that I tried every possible way, listening to every single person in the conference.
The short-term deal does not include spending cuts or new policies to deal with the border crisis sought by conservatives. The proposal caught Democrats off guard, but ultimately they greenlit the plan by an overwhelming majority.
The American people have won. The extreme MAGA Republicans have lost.
McCarthy initially sought to pass a bill exclusively with Republican votes, but was bailed out by Democrats as today's measure passed with more Democratic votes than Republican.
He needed to work with Democrats to get it because he's got, a bunch of members of the Chaos Caucus that are never going to vote for anything.
The White House today calling the deal on the Hill a big victory. But the last-minute passage was not without drama. Congressman Jamal Bowman admitted to pulling a fire alarm in a House office building. Bowman said it was by accident. Republicans accusing him of doing it on purpose to delay the vote.
I think ethics should look at this, but this is serious.
But while the crisis was averted today, the real work still needs to be done.
We won't be back here in the same place in 45 days?
Look, we are going to focus come Monday on completing the appropriations bills, but there's a lot of work to do.
That was Ryan Noble's reporting. This measure, by the way, will keep the government running until November 17th. An evacuation is now lifted in Effingham County nearly 24 hours later. 5 people were killed in a crash that prompted more than 500 people to evacuate. Dozens of agencies responding. In fact, the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency is now investigating. 5 on Your Side's Diamond Palmer with the very latest.
State, federal, and local agencies are all here in Effingham to help out for the ammonia leak that happened. The semi-truck that crashed happened in between Montrose and Effingham, and officials say that 500 people were displaced from their homes and evacuated until they are given the all clear.
First off, the families and all those affected have our deepest sympathy.
Saturday morning, officials near and far held a press conference to inform residents about the semi-truck crash in Teutopolis. It was carrying 7,500 gallons of hazardous chemicals. Teutopolis sits nearly 100 miles from St. Louis. Officials say the tanker ruptured as a result of the crash. Shortly after, crews arrived on the scene to patch the leak.
But they got the majority of it, so it did leak through the night and then most of the day today.
Fire Chief Tim McMahon says the tanker contained anhydrous ammonia chemicals. Evacuation happened from Pearl Street to Teutopolis along Route 40 to 2100 North Road in a 2-mile radius.
And we spent a lot of time today trying to come up with a plan to offload it, and we finally had a company come down from up north.
Chief McMahon says the risk of hazardous chemicals in the air is a problem.
It gets in your lungs and burns your lungs almost immediately.
Illinois State Representative Adam Niemerg, who represents the area, believes the crash could have been prevented.
There's been many accidents on Interstate 70, and what happens is you have traffic that gets routed on US 40 right through Teutopolis here. And unfortunately, a lot of folks are a little upset because they felt that this type of thing would happen eventually.
The names and ages of the 5 fatalities have not been given out yet because these families are grieving the loss of their loved ones. We are told, though, when the scene is clear, that's when the Effingham County coroner will then go in and update that number if need be. Reporting here in Teutopolis, Diamond Palmer, 5 on your side.
All right, Diamond, thanks. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker sharing a statement saying in part, quote, "Our hearts are with the loved ones of those affected by the car crash and chemical leak. My administration is on the ground and we will provide state support in any way we can." Developing in St. Louis, we're working to learn more about the death of an inmate from the St. Louis Justice Center. Authorities say around 2 this morning, Jawan Carter had a medical emergency. Officials took that detainee to the hospital, and that's where he died. We don't know what led to his death. This is the 3rd jail detainee death since the end of August, and that's following ongoing concerns at the city jail. Detainees also took a security guard hostage back in August. Well, a much warmer final day of September and the nearly 90-degree temperatures led to heat exhaustion in our area. High school students at a marching band festival in Arnold had to be treated after experiencing symptoms. Authorities tell us more than 2 dozen got sick due to the heat. 3 teenagers had to be taken to the hospital. Let's go ahead and head over to Weather First meteorologist Gary Frank to see how long these higher temperatures will stick with us, Gary.
Yeah, tough to get rid of them here over the next few days. You know, we're supposed to be 77 degrees right now, 76. We're supposed to start off in the 50s, and we've done far from that over the last couple of days. The trend continues in the month of October. Right now, as we look downtown, fireworks going off. You can see them here in the distance. Fireworks going off pretty nice here, and that's actually our building. We're having a really good time down here. No, it's temps right now still in the mid-70s. Right now, this is our average high, and it's still that way at 1020. That's the big story for us. And as we look closer to those fireworks, you can see I think they're reflecting right off the building there. East-southeast breeze at 7 miles an hour, still a little humid. Temps in the mid-70s tomorrow. We're not going to get rid of that. It's going to be, we're going to have to lead to fire danger down the road just because it's so dry. But we are targeting some rain. It's not tomorrow for the rest of your weekend, but it also is going to bring a big change. We'll track that for you and also talk about a fall feel, which is on the way shortly.
Memorializing a man who paved a path.
Our ancestors lived the American nightmare so that we can live the American dream.
The reason Dred Scott's ancestors showed up to Calvary Cemetery. Plus, a familiar tale in Louisiana.
Water main breaks, just leaky joints, leaky hydrants, you name it.
Since St. Louis battles eroding infrastructure, we're searching for solutions in New Orleans. A long overdue memorial unveiled in St. Louis today. The Dred Scott Heritage Foundation premiered a new monument at his gravesite. Located in Calvary Cemetery, the memorial is etched with Bible verses and Dred Scott's portrait. It replaces the modest headstones previously in that place. This memorial is something his descendants believe better represents Scott's massive impact on our country.
His original headstone was very dear to us, and we have it. We're going to keep it, but it just didn't do justice to his history.
The Dred Scott Heritage Foundation says the former slave's grave is among the top 3 most visited sites at Calvary Cemetery. In a couple of weeks, a new headstone will also be revealed for Harriet Scott, Dred Scott's wife. Today, Promo, Missouri, hosting a gala fundraiser. This is an annual event to raise money for the group's mission of addressing anti-LGBTQ+ legislation. Many of their efforts are focused on issues that make their way up to the State House. This is the largest fundraiser supporting the LGBTQ+ community in Missouri.
You know, for the end of September and as much rain as we haven't gotten, it's still kind of humid, and we should retire this graphic, but we will shortly. It's going to feel a lot more like fall. We'll detail that in our next chance for rain ahead.
St. Louis is no stranger to the consequences of a failing infrastructure. Now city leaders have a chance to invest in the city's future. Political editor Mark Maxwell travels to New Orleans to see how St. Louis can learn from that city's efforts to rebuild.
A thriving city needs one thing more than any other: people. Sure, that much may be obvious, but what happens when they leave? We've seen it in St. Louis, a slow, steady decline over decades. But no city has seen a more mass exodus, more drastic than New Orleans, that city on the Gulf that became the front lines of the climate crisis when aging infrastructure gave way to a decades-defining catastrophe.
Well, we lost 200,000 people in a day. So it's a biblical event.
You probably remember where you were when you saw these images on your screen in 2005.
It's really unheard of in American history.
Hurricane Katrina buried one of the nation's most adored cities underwater. Mike Perlstein won 2 Pulitzer Prizes covering a storm he had to survive himself.
On day 7, I waded into my house, water up to my chest, and then when I finally got a chance to take a break, I canoed into my house.
At first glance, many shocked onlookers attributed the devastation to the sheer force of nature. But upon closer inspection,
it's really a man-made disaster, the failure of the federal levees.
Perlstein, now at our sister station WWL, found cracks in the levees and canals, aging infrastructure ignored for far too long.
Turns out it was shoddy, it was not maintained. The engineering design in many instances was substandard, all got exposed, unfortunately, all at once with this major disaster.
It really had gone through a phase of neglect.
We met Ghassan Korban at the Sewerage and Water Board, where he inherited the infrastructure battered by Katrina and another problem exacerbated by it.
Shrinking population, but the system does not shrink because we're still serving all extremities of the city.
What happens when problems grow bigger and fewer people stick around to pay for them?
Well, that's where there are some interesting parallels between New Orleans and St. Louis, is that at the time Katrina hit New Orleans, we were undergoing that slow erosion of tax base, of infrastructure. We were losing population.
In that case, Congress came rushing to rescue New Orleans with billions of dollars to build the city back up. But here,
St. Louis did not have a parallel single incident or a collapse of the whole industry or a disaster to rally the country.
New Orleans may be more of a struggling city in a swamp than a shining city on the hill. But often, that's where solutions are born, under immense pressure, just as a city reaches its breaking point.
Water main breaks, just leaky joints, leaky hydrants, you name it.
Water main pipes twist for 1,600 miles under the streets of New Orleans.
We have the most active drainage system in the country.
More than half those pipes are 80 years old. Nearly 1 in 3 were installed a century ago.
They're fragile, they have the tendency to break down.
Water main breaks led to a loss of pressure and the hassles and health risks that can accompany them. When the list of deferred maintenance and repairs grew too long to keep up with, they switched their thinking.
Replace, don't repair. Think 50 years, not 5 years. No matter how much you maintain, an old machine is still an old machine.
Eventually, recurring problems started to disappear. Korban engineered the construction of 2 massive backup water towers, redundancies ready to send instant pressure into the pipelines.
Between the new pumps and those 2 water hammers, we have virtually eliminated the citywide boil water advisories.
With fewer emergencies erupting, their crews could focus on installing miles of this high-density polyurethane inside the older, brittle pipes.
You don't have to start big, but you have to be very methodical and intentional about funding infrastructure.
He found investing now in new infrastructure to stabilize water pressure in old pipes alleviates financial pressure in future budgets.
We are 100% better long-term, economically, reliably, from a resiliency perspective.
Mark Maxwell, 5 on your side.
Great work, Mark. All right, let's get closer to home now with your Weather First forecast. Meteorologist Gary Frank standing by with that. Hey there, Gary.
Yeah. Good evening, Brent. We want to make sure we get to the bottom of this. First of all, it was the stadium. It wasn't us. It was the end of the game, the concert, whatever it was. That's where the fireworks were coming from. So we've solved that issue over the last 20 minutes. So that's actually brought us some joy here. It's pretty warm, all things considered. And the allergies are still. If you're outside and your allergies are bothering you, not only do we have some ragweed, but you also got a very high mold count despite not much growing. We got to 90 today in many spots. Imagine if they played the game on that turf in central Missouri today. Not that it was a ton better in Nashville, but still. Temps right now are still in the mid-70s. It's kind of humid for this time of the year, as I mentioned. Normally, we don't talk about the dew point end of September, early October, more than once or twice, but it's kind of humid. Our average is 76 over 55, and, you know, we're not even close in the morning. That's why your AC is on. And today's high of 90 degrees. It was the first time we've hit 90 on the nose on this date ever since 1874. We've been keeping records. That's the 7th warmest we've had all time, so on this date. And temperatures will fall into the low 60s. Not all that bad. The dew point's usually a good look for what we're going to see our temps fall to into the overnight hours. And so low 60s was right on the money as we continue to look ahead. Not much going on area-wide. That's why we're getting really excited about fireworks. But overall, the pattern will change. This is preventing as a roadblock here. And until this moves out, which it will, that will finally move out of our way, and then the cool air settles in. But until then, we're kind of stuck with this. So it's still going to get hotter and still going to stay dry. This cooler air will present a front and really dig in with some fall-like air, but it's also going to bring us a chance for rain Wednesday late into Thursday. I'm not all that sold on that much rain. Once again, we need a really good soaking rain for about 24 hours. We're just not going to see that. There'll be some pockets of decent rain like we had the other day. But overall, it's going to be much cooler. 62 Saturday. We'll start off in the 40s. It's a sunny and cool day. Sunday, lows in the 40s again, but breezy and cool. 66, so get ready, especially heading down to Columbia for that game in early morning. It's going to be cool. Temps over the next few days close to 90, and that's what we're going to get a steady diet of. First time in a while we've gone from 90 back into the 60s, but that's what we're headed for, and I think this is going to be a very fall-like week ahead here once we get through Wednesday.
All right, we're waiting for fall.
We're waiting for it. I got a couple layers that I haven't worn, as do you. You know, some stuff digging out in the closet.
There you go. We'll be ready. Thank you, my friend. We've got Holden in for Corey tonight.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Brent. And we have some bragging rights on the line down at City Park as the I-70 series continues out on the pitch. I'll have highlights from the Show Me Showdown at City Park next in sports.
The Sports Desk is sponsored by Jim Butler Chevrolet, the Midwest's #1 Chevy dealer 10 years running.
At 69-91 entering the ninth, the Cardinals really don't have much to play for other than pride. But that didn't stop the Birds on the bat from playing their role of spoiler tonight at Busch. The Cards came out firing in the first inning. Jordan Walker is going to get this hanging breaker and drive it to left. 2 runs are going to come around to score on the double from Walker. And the Cards have put up 5 in the first inning. Now, in the bottom of the second, we're going to have 2 on, 2 out for Lars Nootbaar. He takes the 2-2 offering and deposits it in the cheap seats in right field. The Cardinals up 8-0 at that point, and then just a few batters later, Jose Fermin, well, he's going to get a little luck. The Cardinals would go up 11 runs before Cincinnati even got on the board as the Redbirds pick up their 70th win of the season by a final of 15-6. Now, the season hasn't gone as planned, but Jordan Walker, well, he's just glad to be along for the ride.
Man, it's tough up here. That's the biggest thing. These guys are good. These guys hit their spots. These guys are good at defense. Not everything's going to fall, man, but, you know, I want a challenge, and I'm glad I'm up here, man. So, very exciting season. That stuff I definitely know I'm going to work on in the offseason, but, man, for my first season, man, I had a lot of fun.
This 5 on Your Side St. Louis City SC coverage is sponsored by Together Credit Union.
Bragging rights were on the line tonight at City Park as Sporting KC made the trip across the strait with a playoff spot on the line. After playing to a draw in the first half, City would get things going in the 72nd minute off this free kick. Samuel Adeniran with a perfect header. City with the 1-0 lead, and they're not done just yet. Just 2 minutes later, Sporting KC desperately trying to clear the ball. Jared Stroud ends up with it, and he makes the defender miss and then puts that left footer past the keeper. It's 2-0 City. Then 4 minutes later, City is going to score again. This time it's Klaus connecting with the cross, and the floodgates are wide open. City wins this one by a final of 4-1 and wins the season series with Kansas City to remain atop the West.
To get a game, with this opponent, with so much on the line, what it means to the fans, what it means to everybody here individually, personally, whatever they go to is, whatever their motivations are to get it to this point. Just extremely proud of the group, and to call that spot our own. We can't buy anything with it. We can't celebrate anything with it. There's no silverware with it, but yeah, it's there.
Later in the third, Burden would be used as a decoy. Brady Cook's going to air it out to Marquise Johnson, and all this dude does is catch bombs. The Tigers with a 31-7 lead. Burden would have 11 catches for 140 yards and 2 touchdowns. Meanwhile, Cook was 33 of 41 for 395 yards and 4 touchdowns. Then he got mobbed by his teammates in the locker room as Mizzou wins this one, 38-21.
Our quarterback just set the all-time SEC record.
You couldn't hear it for all the screaming there.
Yeah.
Cook actually set an SEC record, 325 consecutive passes without an interception. He's really just putting up some numbers. Love to see these local guys.
Yeah, well, we do. But you know what? Guess who always wears his black and gold tie?
Oh, I'm wearing blue and orange today, but they were so bad today I couldn't show their highlights.
Syracuse?
Okay. Get the weather.
I'm another blue and orange. You know that, right? I'm the other.
That's another fine journal. That's another fine journalism school. Temps in the mid to upper 80s the next few days, and then next weekend we're going to be talking about dressing in layers as you tailgate for that game next Saturday.
All right, we'll be ready for it. Thanks for the company, my friend. Saturday Night Live is next.